who are first and second favourites, Ngugi and Ondieki, and I'm not saying which one's favourite. Ngugi cannot afford Ondieki to sit on him for a sprint finish. So they're ready, 14 go. Eamon Martin having withdrawn through illness from this final, so the English contingent down to 3. 14 go on this journey in the 5,000 metres of 12 and a half laps.
On your mark.
It was a bit cooler. They started sunshine, but almost immediately go into shadow. Kerry Rogers, though, with a lot of Roger, rather, with a lot of local support. He is an Auckland man. I think a bit too much was expected of him in the 10,000 metres, but he ran a fast 3,000 recently, which surprised the local supporters. So they're hoping, but with the Africans in the field, he's going to have to show a startling improvement. Roger leads, Andrew Llyod in second place, third is Mark Rowland, fourth is Carroll of Australia, 5 is Hackney, 6 is Ondieki, 7 is Ngugi, 8 Paul Williams, 9 Tanui. Jack Buckner, as usual, has started off towards the back, the European champion. In fact, he's next to back in the red shorts.
Well, maybe Kerry Roger there, the leader, maybe he suffered through that extra pressure in the 10,000 metres, and there certainly isn't the same expectation on him in this 5,000 metres, and maybe we'll just see him do his honest run, do his normal run, and a decent performance would be expected of him. But I think we needn't look any further than the 2 Kenyans. Jack Buckner, though, who's right at the back of the field, who's been England's and Britain's #1 performer in the last 3 major games. Well, I've been watching Jack in training, I've been watching him in his races, and he certainly seems to have that rhythm that he used to have a few years ago, back in his step. He certainly seems to be in control of things, and he's becoming a big-time operator. He seems to be the sort of athlete who only performs on the big occasion, and that's a wonderful armoury to have, because when you're on the warm-up track and you think, well, it's a big game, I always run well in big games, then you expect to run well, and it makes things an awful lot easier.
First lap, 65 seconds. And Kerry Roger has brought the stadium to life. And one or two interesting tactical problems to be sorted out here, though. We've got Ngugi and Ondieki. Ondieki, a fast finisher, and his form in Europe suggested last season, if it's slow, remember he beat a Wheater, if it's slow, he can win it. But will Ngugi set out to run the finish out of his friend and national team companion? And in those circumstances, what would you do, Brendan, if you were Jack Buckner? Jack hasn't got a short finish.
Well, oh goodness me. Well, I think that, talking about Jack Buckner, I think that was Jack who went over, and Ngugi, as you were talking about them, David, they were just looking at one another and went flat on their face. Well, that's a tragedy for both of them. Ngugi, though, is setting off in pursuit of the bunch.
So that's the Olympic champion and the European champion, two of the major title holders in straight on floor. There is both of them back to, but Ngugi was used to the fastest and slow running. He's got straight back there. Jack Buckner, much more economical and perhaps more sensible in his approach. And there they go. Ngugi went down, Buckner went down. He and Hamer had to step inside the track.
Well, I don't think Ondieki would have known about that, but look at Ngugi move through the field. If I'd been Ondieki, I'd have taken off then, because I can guess that he didn't know anything about it. So I would have pressed on and taken that. Even so, that lap of 64 seconds, Ngugi must have run about 60 seconds, and he's continued at that pace.
I think they've really upset him. Now I'll show you. And of course, Ondieki had no idea that had happened.
Well, I've got to say, I thought he did a brave move by getting back to the field, but I don't think that was altogether sensible to keep it going as much as that. And I think Ondieki realizes that something's gone on, and I think Ondieki is set off in pursuit of Ngugi, and Ngugi will begin to suffer a little now for that lap, which certainly was well within 60 seconds, but the pace that he kept it going at means he's run 600 meters at about 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, and he'll definitely pay a little for that.
Jack Buckner is now back with the pack. He's passed Roger Hackney and passed McCloy of Canada. He's 3 from the back. And Ondieki must be wondering what all the excitement's about. And Ngugi, having got in front, I think, is probably... Oh, Ndiiki's down! Ndiiki down. And Rowland staggered. Well, we've had some drama in this stadium today, but now both favourites have been on the floor. And in Ngugi's tactics, he looks back now. He knows something's happened. He knows Ndiiki isn't there. And I believe now he'll take off.
Well, he's just had that little breather since he had that fast lap. And Ndiiki is now starting the chase. But really, you know, a case of standing up in the 5,000 metres, usually your coach doesn't tell you that because it's not usually a problem. But it seems to me the one who can stand up the longest is going to do the best.
Let's watch that. Man in second place, being tracked by Mark Rowland and Paul Williams. And Mark caught him. Mark Rowland caught him there. It's almost inevitable. Rowland almost went down himself. Paul Williams does a side shuffle. So we're getting used to this side of athletes looking in despair at others disappearing in the distance. But the one who was on the floor first, John Ngugi, is now first. And the last lap, by the way, he's just gone, Brendan, 62-62. And that was probably preceded by a sub-60 when he caught the field.
Well, I said when we saw him line up, he's one of my all-time favourite distance runners because he never, ever seems to have a problem in getting away from a field. But he fell down, he got up, he ran sub-60, then he kept the pace going at about 61, 62 second pace, and he's bound to slow a little before he gathers his momentum again. And charging in fourth place there now, chasing Mark Rowland, is Yoba's Ndiiki. Now, we saw earlier in the 800 metres, there was a lot of pushing and a lot of barging, and there was a lot of rough riding going on. But this race, we've had 3 people fall, and it wasn't as a result of anybody pushing anybody. It was a case of people getting too close, clipping the heels at the back. And Mark Rowland now finds himself in a beautiful position, having just followed, having managed to stay on his feet, following Paul Williams and John Ngugi. A little over-exuberant, but I'll tell you what, the race isn't over from his point of view yet.
And it's not over from Jack Buckner's point of view either, because Jack's working his way through the field. Roger Hackney's suffering at the back. That was a 65-second lap, so Ngugi's been relaxing in front. Paul Williams in second place after his bronze medal run in the 10,000 metres. Mark Rowland third. Met Mark in the domain, the great park here where so many runners train, fun runners and everything, the other day. And he's staying with relatives out here, and he's really enjoyed it. He's run a couple of good 1,500 metres. And they're now about 30 metres clear of Ndiiki, who's stopped making an impression. I think he's very, very disappointed. Tanui just behind him, then Kerry Roger, then Andy Llyod of Australia. And Jack Buckner gradually trying to get back. But it's going to be very hard to catch these leading 3 now. I think Ndiiki's very fed up with the whole scene. He's back in 5th place now. And of course it happened to him at a vital time when Ngugi had got himself back in the race and already established a lead, so it nearly meant he was stretching away. And there he goes again, a 65-second last lap, and he's obviously kicked in to get rid of Williams and Mark Rowland. Classic Ngugi and Kenyan tactics.
But look how easily he moves away from the pair of them. He just stretches and gets away, and that you always feel that he has the ability to get rid of the field at any point. Mark Rowland glanced over his shoulder, and he must have told himself, I've just got to keep going at this pace, and there's definitely a medal for me. Mark's really quick at the finish, and really, you know, if they can just get back to Ngugi and wait till about 2.5, 3 laps to go, then the gold medal could be on for Mark Rowland, because I calculated that Ngugi must have run 3 laps sub-4-minute mile pace, which early on in the 5,000 metres is suicidal for everyone in the world except this man.
Well, he had no chance on one of them of not running fast to catch up. He could have taken the option of working the thing out slowly, as Jack Buckner did, but Jack's not making any impression in this race and is now going back. Ndiiki looks, well, not happy. 65 seconds again there. The lap turned out to be even, but I don't think the pace was. It's Norwood going through of Australia, followed by Hackney. Ian Hamer of Wales running a good race. He's back in 7th place. And Ngugi goes again. It seems to be the fast, slow tactics. On the top bend, he runs fast. On this bend, he's a bit slower. Paul Williams 2nd, Mark Rowland 3rd, Kerry Roger 4, Tanui 5. And Ndiiki has Gone absolutely. He's Jack Buckner too. He's way behind on Ngugi, who's also, Brendan, undoubtedly given up the race.
Well, I think so, and just notice when Jack went past, his shoulders really badly grazed, so he obviously took a fair tumble when he went. And Ngugi pressing on now with 3.5 laps to go. Paul Williams chasing in second place, has run very, very well since he came here. But I think if Ngugi doesn't get further ahead, then there could be a terrific race on the last lap, because the two followers, Paul Williams and Mark Rowland, will begin to chase. And the group is being led by Tanui, who's bringing the rest of the group back. And I'm really impressed with young Ian Hamer, who was the second slowest in this field when he came into it. He's the youngest in this field as well, and he's running a brilliant race back in 7th place, and I think he'll finish higher than that too.
Tanui is leading the group of 4 back, but Ngugi is clear. The last lap, by the way, Brendan, was 66 seconds, slightly slower than the previous one, but of course he's breaking them up by varying the speed, isn't he?
I still feel he needs a few more yards, because the last lap finish from Mark Rowland could certainly close that gap, and we saw Paul Williams finish at 1,500 metres here the other day, where he finished the last lap well under 60 seconds. We've not yet seen Ngugi have to sprint to win a race, and I think he would feel as though he would want those extra few yards going into the last two laps. So he's got just under 2.5 laps to go. I think he knows they're fairly close to him, but the chasing group is now being led by Kerry Roger, and they're going wild in this stadium.
He's not going any faster in front, it's 66. But I wonder if Mark Rowland hasn't settled for a race for the silver. He's not going to give Paul Williams a free ride in these closing stages as they come around with 2 to go. Rowland's tucked in there, but the danger to those in 2nd and 3rd place, Williams and Rowland, is that Kerry Roger is beginning, and Tanui, they're beginning to get back, and they're closing the gap all the time.
Well, this is the crucial point of the race for Ngugi. He just needs to keep going, and he just needs a few more yards, because there'll be an almighty charge behind, because Paul Williams and Mark Rowland are being closed down by Tanui, Kerry Roger, Andrew Lloyd, who's very fast at the finish, and young Ian Hamer, who we've seen do ever so well. And almost always on the penultimate lap, if you're not leading and you're chasing, there tends to be a slowing. Mark Rowland very sensibly has taken off in pursuit of Ngugi.
I think Mark has realised the danger with 600 metres left. And there really is a race now for silver and bronze. Ngugi clear in the gold medal position, having been on the floor in the 2nd lap. Buckner didn't recover from his fall. Ngugi late in the race didn't recover from his fall. They're both a long way back. But Ngugi surely can't be caught as they come around with 400 to go. But Rowland and Tanui together, then Kerry Roger, with the crowd cheering him on. Andrew Lloyd on the inside, and Ian Hamer there. What a race for 2nd place. Paul Williams, who led the chase after Ngugi, now paying for that and out of the medal positions. Ngugi being caught slowly down the back straight, Rowland having to do the work, Lloyd in 3rd place, Tanui 4. Can they catch the leader? Tanui now has taken off. Ian Hamer of Wales, he goes now. Mark Rowland is beaten. Ian Hamer chasing, less than 200. Lloyd of Australia, and the gap is closing. Ngugi looks back, anxious, and again, and they're still closing. They'll surely never do it. And here comes Lloyd. Lloyd on the near side. Can he possibly get there? Ngugi's tiring. Lloyd is catching him, and all the way, Ngugi is going to be beaten. Lloyd wins. Ngugi 2nd. Hamer 3rd. Roger 4. Tanui 5. Williams 6. Mark Rowland 7th. I don't think I've seen so much drama.
The finish, I just feel really flattened for John Ngugi, because his fall really cost him that race. He ran too enthusiastically in the early part, and Andrew Lloyd waited and waited. At one point, he wasn't even interested in the gold medal. John Ngugi had that medal won, and why he didn't accelerate with about 300 metres to go, well, obviously he was so exhausted.
Brought along as a last-minute addition, and how he's grown here. But Ngugi, it looked impossible to catch him. But Lloyd saw hope, and look at him stretching away. And Ngugi, well, perhaps the fall cost him victory. Perhaps his own impetuousness cost him the gold medal by getting back in the race far too quickly. What a race.